live? Okay, so we are on live. So today we're going to discuss preferences and how to say things. We'll look at different examples. We'll do a little quiz type thing. And then we'll do some conversation. So a little bit of everything. And we'll just look at different ways to say, what you prefer. We can look at things that are less formal, more formal, depending on the situation. This could also be used in a business setting, which we can talk about maybe for contracts or, hours or something like that. Maybe if it's flexible, you can talk about which you prefer. Okay, so let me just check the document, make sure it's at the beginning. And so now I will screen share with you, and then you won't be able to see me. Let me see your preferences. Okay, lots of things open here. Perfect. All right, so now you can see this, I'm guessing. Yes. And so for general use, there are many, many different ways that we can talk about preferences or how we want to say, hey, I like this better than the other. And so that's what we're going to work on today, okay? Again, it's different ways to ask about people's general tastes, okay? Not taste in the food context here, but what you like. Okay, and preferences that you can use one of the following. For example, I will have you read with just in a second here. Which do you prefer, tea or coffee? And you can say, I prefer tea to coffee. Again, many different things. We don't even have to say to coffee. We can just say, I prefer tea. You can say, I would prefer tea, okay, or to coffee. And so these are just some very basic ways to start this. Another way to ask would be, which do you prefer drinking, tea or coffee? And I prefer drinking tea to coffee again. Okay, so we're using maybe a verb here. The first one sounds more like we're focusing on the actual liquid. Is it tea or coffee that you prefer? And then in the second one, we're more focusing on the drinking aspect, okay? And so they're asking a slightly different question, but with basically the same meaning. And again, you can say this, I would prefer drinking. And once I get down a little bit further, you'll see a different way to use prefer, a different way to say it. So, Anna, why don't you go ahead and read this example? All of this you can read for me, okay?
My pleasure. Which do you prefer, to drink tea or coffee? Note: prefer to plus present simple. I prefer to drink tea than coffee.
Okay, good. Maybe instead of present simple, personally, I would use maybe the infinitive. Okay, so that's what they're talking about here. Prefer plus to plus the present simple or the infinitive, like I said. And so what I just want to note here is, we'll do this. Okay, we have preferred drinking or we have preferred to drink. And now both of these are perfectly correct and you can use both of them. All right, one is not better than the other. It's just what it is. Okay, this is called a verb pattern. Let me write this in here. Oops, verb pattern. All right. And with a verb pattern, you either use after prefer. Prefer tells us what we need to do. We can either use the verb drink with the ing, okay, like it's here. Or after the verb prefer, we can use the infinitive, like here, with to drink, okay? So that's the difference. Maybe another example is I like, dancing, or I like to dance. Okay, with this verb as well, with like, you can also choose which the verb goes in after, if it's in the ing form, like this one, or in the infinitive form in the second example that I have here. Okay, so that's what a verb pattern is. It's only when you have two verbs. So that's a good reminder of that. Okay, you need to have two verbs. All right, any questions with this before I delete my little example here?
A question about difference. In the first case, we used to campaign tea to coffee, and in the second example, then campaign drink tea or drink coffee. Why is difference?
Um, with drinking, they just wanted to add a little bit more emphasis on the drinking aspect. But it really means basically the same thing.
I mean, to and then, two prepositions. Why we use to in the first
Okay. So I
case and in
prefer
the second then?
than coffee. It's the same meaning. You're still it means the same thing. There's another one that we can say too is I prefer oops,
Campaign with
perfect.
coffee. I would say I prefer drinking tea. Campaign with coffee. I'm not sure. Is it
It would
correct?
be compared to
Compared to drinking coffee. Okay.
drinking coffee. And then instead of than, we can also use the preposition over. Prefer drinking tea over coffee. So these are
Okay.
just different expressions that we can use. Okay.
Okay. Thank
Does
you
that
very much.
perfect? Great. Well, I'm glad I could answer that. So let's get rid of this, and we will go back here. So perfect. With the then here. So that's just perfectly fine. It's just different ways. Actually, would you like to read the second example here?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
The last one here.
Which do you like better, tea or coffee? I like tea better than coffee.
Exactly. Okay. And again, we can say this sentence in many different ways. Okay. I really enjoy drinking tea more than coffee. I like tea more than coffee. Tea is better than coffee. And so, I mean, we could go on for days talking about how to answer this. But they're basically using, the same structure of the question. Okay. They're talking about, we use like. And then better tea and coffee, we're using all of these words except for or in this example here, just like the other ones. Okay, so I prefer to drink is in this one because in the question we have prefer to drink. Whoops, that was a little bit too fast. And then in this one, prefer drinking is in the answer. And so it's just mimicking the question. All right, great. So hopefully there aren't any questions because I'm going to move on to the next page here. Move up. So do you prefer tea or coffee? Again, another way, and it means the same thing. All of these examples we've just looked at have the same meaning. I prefer tea to coffee. That's basically it, okay? And this at a specific time actually goes with the next part. So that is it for the questions. Again, many different ways to say it. These are just some examples. All right. So let's look at the next part here. It says, imagine that a friend is visiting your home. You offer to make them a drink and you ask, would you prefer tea or coffee? Again, they can just take out all the grammar from here and say tea, please, or just the word tea. We don't need to, like I said, mimic the question. Okay, this is called a complete answer. However, in English, and I'm sure your own native language, you don't speak with complete sentences all the time. Okay. For example, what did you have for dinner last night? Oh, I had chicken and rice, for example. Okay, I didn't say, oh, last night for dinner I had chicken and rice. I've mentioned many times that in English, especially with, for example, the contraction words like don't instead of do not, can't instead of cannot. We say things in the shortest form possible. And so because we don't need to repeat the question, oh, I would prefer tea, please. We don't need to say all of that. Okay, does that make sense to both of you?
Yes, I understood. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so if we look at the next part here, with unreal situations, okay, unreal situations, if you love grammar, you can think about the second conditional in this case when we use would, okay? So, all right, so this is our unreal situation. It says, unfortunately, there is no chance that you will marry Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp. This is an unreal situation, so we ask, it says, notice we use rather, and it's always followed by the verb. So let's look at this example. Would you rather marry Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp? Okay, I'd rather marry Johnny Depp and Brad Pitt. I think he's sexier. Maybe I'll take this out. I know there's no children watching, but and so we're using this, of course, our contraction once again. Instead of saying would, we're just saying duh. We're just taking that last little part there. Okay, so I'd rather, and then we have our main verb right after rather. There's no to, there's no ing. This is what happens after rather. Okay, so it's just marry. So this is another verb pattern with would rather. We always use the infinitive without to. Any questions with this? Maybe let's look at the next example. Make sure things are clear. Another example. Anna, why don't you go ahead and read this one for us?
Would you rather be a bird or a dolphin? I'd rather be a bird than a dolphin because I don't like fish.
Perfect. Okay, so we have. Do you have a question, Anna?
Dolphin is not a fish. It's a mammal.
Right, but they eat fish.
Some birds do.
I suppose. I suppose. Yeah, that's true. Do you want me to change the example? Maybe I don't like.
Yes, because I wish I could fly.
Okay. As well. I changed it to swimming because I'd rather be a bird. Oops, because I don't like swimming. Yes, that does make sense. So good. So looking back at the structure, we have would rather, and then the verb in the infinitive form again, okay? And then again in the answer, I'd rather be, and then the answer, a bird, than. Again here, like I said before, we can use over. I'd rather be a bird to a dolphin. We could use to here. So these three prepositions mean basically the same thing, okay? I don't think there's any specific one that sounds best. I think they all sound exactly fine. To a dolphin because I don't like swimming. Okay, birds normally don't swim. Does that work for you, Anna?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Perfect. All right, so then we have some other examples. And so Anatoly, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name.
Anatoly.
Okay,
Anatoly.
Anatoly.
Okay.
Good. Would you read the next one? Again, this is in the negative form.
Okay. Negative answers. Would you rather marry Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp? I'd rather not marry either. I'd rather marry David Beckham.
Okay, very good. So, would you rather marry again? After rather, we have marry in the infinitive. And to make this negative, I'd rather not marry. So what happens with verb patterns is when you make it negative and the verb has to be in the infinitive form, you have to use the word not. Okay? We would not say, I wouldn't rather marry. That just sounds terrible. We do not say that, okay? It's this, the second verb that we use in the negative. Okay? Any questions with this?
No, no questions.
Okay, good. I'd prefer not to, prefer not to marry, for example, okay? Just so you can see, I prefer not marrying. We wouldn't say that. Prefer not marrying. Now, I say we wouldn't say marrying in this case because it's difficult. Okay, I prefer not to marry. And we would join these words as well. Okay. So these are other ways that we can use the negative form, but with prefer. And you can always use I would because this is an unreal situation. Or honestly, I prefer not to marry either because I already have a perfect man for me. So I don't want to marry Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp. That's a real situation. Okay, so just so that you can see other negative forms. Wonderful. Looks like things are going well. Okay, so I'll read this last one and then we have to guess the correct word here. The last question says, would you rather be a bird or a dolphin? Again, it's just a different way to ask. I'd rather not be either. I'd rather be a cow, for example. Let's change that to a cat because that's true for me. I'd rather not. So again, to make this negative, after rather and before the infinitive, we're adding the not here. Okay. Questions with this, either of you? Anything that you would like to go over? Anything that might not be clear?
For me, it's clear.
Okay. Good. Anna, is everything clear for you as well?
Yes.
All right. Well, then that's pretty good. Oh, and we have a new joiner here. Hello. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and look at some of these questions here. It says to complete the sentences. So, would you to meet at 6 or 7? And again, this is just another way to say 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that we can say this. All right, so what's my answer here? Is it prefer, rather, or would rather?
Rather, I think.
You think it's
No. Prefer. The first
Prefer.
one. Mhm.
All right, and why did you choose prefer as the correct answer?
The last is not appropriate. Twice would, and we have two options. The first sounds better. Just intuition. I don't know why.
Okay.
May I?
Yes, you may, and I was just going to ask you anyway, so perfect.
Because of the preposition to.
Exactly.
When you ask rather, you don't use the preposition. Would you rather meet at 6 p.m. or
Exactly.
7 p.m.?
That's perfect, and that's exactly what I was going to say is after prefer, we have either to, or we have it with ing, and so we could say, would you prefer meeting at 6 o'clock or 7, for example? Okay, so we can also change it to be a little different. Okay? Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yes, I understood. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And thank you, Anna, for explaining that. The next one, who do you, Chelsea or Manchester United? I personally do not prefer either. but everyone likes football or in American soccer, so I thought I'd put that in there.
Rather, I think.
You think it's rather?
I think it's prefer.
This is actually prefer. And we do not have another verb here, and so we don't have any ing or to or anything like that. Who do you prefer maybe watching? Whoops. Watching, for example, or to watch, again, we could say, but we don't need those, okay? And so this goes back to the first part of the presentation that I was saying all of the examples that we saw at the beginning basically mean the same thing. They're just a little different. Okay, so who do you prefer? And then we have the names, or we can use a verb in this case. So very good.
Becky.
Question, Anna? Yes?
Yes. The punctuation. I forgot the name, but can you
This?
see this? No. After who do you prefer? I can you see the punctuation I typed on the
Chelsea
chat
or
box?
Manchester United?
Yes, before Chelsea.
Watching or to watch?
No, without the verb. I was wondering if we should use this punctuation. Can you see the chat box? Two dots. 1/2 dots.
I actually wouldn't, because we normally use that when there's 3 or more, and you're talking about, oops, that's a semicolon. A colon is this one. This is what this is called, at least in American English. Okay, so it's a colon and then a semicolon here.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Good question. All right, so if we move on, oops, I go up a little bit here. Which do you, we have like, rather, prefer, better, McDonald's or Burger King?
Like.
Like.
Uh-huh. Very good. Like. Which do you like better? I think that's pretty simple, so that's good. And the next one we have here is, would you go to the cinema or to a restaurant? So we have, would you rather, would you prefer, would you like better?
Prefer. I believe rather and also like better.
Okay, well,
No.
I'm going to agree with rather, and can you explain why, Anna?
Um, because there is the verb go
Mm-hmm.
without the preposition, but I I I thought no. If we use like better, we would have to add the preposition as well.
Exactly, and I'm gonna just type this for you quickly. Would you like to, oops, would you like to go to the cinema better or to a restaurant? Okay. For example, would you like to go to the cinema better or would you like to? Yeah, so that's one way. I wouldn't ask like this. Or to a restaurant. I wouldn't ask like this, like I said, but it's possible. So that, I think, is what you're trying to do, is use like better in the same kind of context, but I don't like that so much. Okay? So it's only rather, and that's because with rather we just use the infinitive of the verb without to and ing, and so prefer cannot happen, and like better, there's too many verbs here. Okay? All right, so this next one, which do you eat, chocolate or ice cream? We have rather, prefer, or prefer to.
Prefer to, maybe.
I agree.
Okay. You agree? Perfect. Which do you prefer to? Eat chocolate or ice cream? Yes, I really do like that one. I'm just trying to think, which do you rather eat? Which would you rather? Okay, so we need to have would here to use rather. So very good, prefer to. Moving on, just a couple more here and then the conversation part. So, who does she, you or me? Like better, rather, prefer to.
Like better?
Mm-hmm. Good. Who does she like better? And so like is our main verb, and then we have our adjective here, better. So this is again in the present simple. Does she like? And then the adjective to tell us more information. And I believe this is the last one. I would rather go to either, prefer to or not.
Rather, do.
Not.
To is incorrect. I would rather not go to either. Not is correct in this case. Here, we don't want to. Okay, so either is saying both in this case. Okay, so not. Very good. We can.
Who said to is the new student. We can listen to her now.
I did say hello when she came in. So I would rather, because prefer, we can't use prefer with would rather. We can't use those in the same sentence. So prefer is out. And with would rather, we do not use to, and so it has to be not. Okay, so that's the situation with that one. Now we have, I think here on the next page, there they are, 3 different situations. So each of you can talk about a situation. If you'd like to talk about the same one, that's fine. But for example, just some pictures so you can speak about this. Do you prefer a house or maybe a flat or an apartment in the city or something? Here, do you prefer a cat or a dog? And then here, do you prefer the city or the country? Okay, so what I'd like the 3 of you to do now is to choose which you'd like to talk about. Maybe I'll make this a tiny bit smaller so we can see all of them, or not. And I'll do that for a second. And then you can just talk about it, okay? And why? Give us reasons why, okay? And would anyone like to start? Any specific?
Should we ask one another?
No, you can just go ahead and start talking. I mean, we can talk about how the question, the structure for the question. But, whoops. Oops, which do you prefer? A house or, I can't spell at all, a house or a flat, for example. Okay, so that could be an example of a question, even though we could ask this probably 12 different ways easily. But Anna, would you like to start maybe?
Okay. I prefer live in a house over a flat because we have more privacy, more space. We can grow some vegetables, and it's far better.
Okay, very good. Perfect. Any other, did you want to maybe do another one? Oops, no, that went away.
For me?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, the second option. I'd prefer to hold at home a cat than a dog because I think they are clever than dogs, and dogs are barking at it's noisy. And just my opinion. I know that people who prefer dogs would probably disagree.
I actually agree with you, and it's nice that someone says they prefer cats more than dogs because it seems like the majority like dogs better. And I don't, so dogs are more work. And cats are very clever, especially mine, so very good. And let's see, maybe I'll move this down a little bit at the country or the city. Tudong, would you like to talk about the country or the city which you prefer, maybe to live in, or if it's to work, or something like that? Okay, or maybe not. Tudong, would you like to talk about something that you prefer? Okay. Well, either one of you, Anna or Anatoly, would you like to add more of an opinion to either of these situations, or to any of these, I should say?
Okay. I'd rather live in a city than in the countryside. Because um I am a city girl and I enjoy um going shopping, and I wouldn't like to live isolated, but I'd like to have a house in the countryside just to go on vacation.
Okay, that works. Good, thank you.
And for me, I'm trying to use second conditional. If
Okay.
if I had a remote job, I mean online job through a remote desktop, I would I'd rather to live in countryside because it is more natural, more healthy style of life. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, that's perfect. Um, any other, if you'd like to do another one, that's fine. We still have some time left.
Okay.
Or if you haven't, go ahead.
I I'd rather have a dog over a cat because they are more faithful and they are very expressive. If you are sad, they they would be at your side, and cats are very cute, but they are a little bit selfish.
Okay, good. I can agree with the faithful part for the dogs. Cats really aren't too faithful, in their own way a little bit, but not exactly like dogs. So very good. And Atali, if you'd like to, you can do the house and the apartment. If not, that's fine.
Mhm. Mm, okay. I'd rather live in my own house than in the flat, because it gives me more space for living, for me and for members of my family. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Well, that's fantastic. So, looks like you did good here, and I'm just going to stop the screen share here so you can see me before we say goodbye because class time is ending. So, I think you guys did fantastic. Good job. Hopefully you got to learn a little bit of something there too. So I'm glad I could help with that. Any final questions?
No questions. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
You're very welcome. Okay, good, Anna. Well, I'm glad you learned the preposition over in this case when we were talking about preferences. So great. So Thomas has added at least Tuesday's class. If you're able to make it, we're going to be talking about learning. I have some, well, in my mind, more controversial questions than normal. Do you think, learning at a school is better, homeschooling? Do you think we need to go to school? And so there's lots of things that we'll be discussing. Oh, good, and the negatives, good. Well, you're welcome, Anna. Glad you could make it today, and everyone else too. Hopefully everyone else learned something too and enjoyed the class. So, and if you're not here live, maybe you're watching it, so thanks for watching as well. But I hope that everyone has a good day. So if there's no questions, it's time to say goodbye. So thank you, everybody, and I'm going to stop the broadcast as well, okay? Thank you.